Civilla Morgan. How are you?
I'm good, Laura. How are you?
I I am well. I do have to just mention it's a Sunday afternoon. I know you record on Sundays. Scott and I usually don't. We are usually either reading the Sunday paper or getting ready to have our families over, which we will
Yeah.
do later on today.
Mm-hmm.
But today
Okay.
we actually have a plumber here who is divided by a very thin wall from where I'm sitting right now. And so we had to push your interview 20 minutes, 30 minutes while they finished. And then the fuse blew in my office.
Oh my.
And so I couldn't get anything online. So we almost had to cancel, but we got it together. You may hear some knocking and bumping around from the work that's being done. So please excuse us. But I wanted to start by asking you an icebreaker. And you were at Podfest with me. Did you get that deck of interview cards?
I sure did.
Yeah, so I'm using those and I'm divided
Okay.
them into three piles and I'm going to ask you to pick a number between 1 and 3
And so
or
apparently
1, 2
most
or
people,
3. Yeah,
yeah, apparently most people pick three.
that's
One of your
correct.
guests picked one, I think. And so let me go with two. I'm going to try number two.
Okay. All right. Number 2. Do you have an area of your life that you are never satisfied with?
Oh, wow.
That's a deep one.
That's a deep one.
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes, because otherwise I would be perfect, and that I am not. So, yes, there is an area.
Do you want to tell us what it is?
I don't think she does.
You don't have
I,
to.
I was just thinking in a split second, should I? But actually, yes, I overthink a lot. I'm an analyzer,
Mm,
big
Me
time.
too.
okay.
I do
Yeah.
that too.
So something might come up and other people may have moved on from the thought, but you may still be kind of ruminating about it.
Right. Did I
Right.
respond correctly? Did I make a mess of things? Oh yeah.
Mm.
I go
Okay.
deep.
All right. All right. I mean, I feel like that's pretty common. I want to say, especially among people that identify as female, but it could be common universally.
Yeah.
But I know that a lot of my women friends express that same concern that it's especially I think after our 20s. I don't know if in the 20s it's I don't know, but actually people say that once you get into like my age, you're supposed to let all that stuff go. So I'll take that back.
Yeah, I think we're all about the same age, to be honest. And I think
Mm.
in my 20s, I was pretty, not that I'm not confident now, but I think I was really confident
Yeah.
in my 20s.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
it was just a different way of moving through stuff. So I
Right.
agree. Thank you for that. I am Laura Cathcart Robbins, and this is the only one in the room. But I'm never the only one in this room because, as usual, my boyfriend, producer, and co host, Scott Slaughter, who I call Hun, is here as well.
And the plumber.
And the plumber.
Hi, honey.
Hi, honey. Oh, I forgot my Hun hat. I was going to wear my Hun hat for
Oh
this.
yeah.
So today we are talking to Civilla Morgan. She is an author, a blogger, and the host slash creator of the podcast Childless Not By Choice, which I have just started listening to. I'm so glad that I did. It's fascinating. And before we started recording, or actually since we started recording, we talked about being together at Podfest,
Mhm.
which is where you and I met. You were very, very generous and came back at the end of the day to watch my panel, to watch my talk rather. And we met while we were watching other talks there, and it was, you know, I don't know about you, but I was there definitely looking for connections with people as well as learning from the different panels and talks.
Right.
And so I was really happy to have connected with you.
I was happy to connect with you and Scott as well. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I
Oh,
have some photos from that, so I gotta get look through them and
I
see
think
if I
you
can
do.
send a couple your way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, awesome.
Excellent. So you had an episode, and I can't remember which one it was, but fibroids were mentioned during the episode. Do you remember
That's
which one
most
that was?
episodes.
That's most episodes. But I'm listening to it, and my phone rings, and it's a number I don't recognize, which usually means I don't pick it up. But one of my kids is out of the country, so I'm picking up all numbers, and it's
Mhm.
it's a woman named Sateria Venerable, And she, oh boy, I should have written down what she does, but she is, botch
But
this. It's something about a fibroid foundation.
Oh.
And she works with creating awareness around fibroids and what they do and what can be done about them, and creating conversations around them, and raising money to help women that are dealing with fibroid issues. So
Mm.
she just happened to call at that same moment. And I didn't say that in the beginning. She was calling because a mutual friend had connected us, but she loves you. She
Oh.
somehow, the conversation got around to you. She says, "Oh my God, Civilla's amazing. I love her podcast, blah, blah, blah." So
What?
Soteria Venerable is her name. So um,
Okay.
just check for her. But it
I
was,
will be.
yes,
That's awesome.
it is awesome, right? I love when that happens.
Yes.
Um, so on the first episode, and actually I think it's your first episode. It was the first episode I listened to. You list 10 things that a childless not by choice woman will never do. And you talked about, watch her baby walk for the first time, watch her baby make a face when tasting food for the first time, feel the pride of watching her child graduate, etc.
Hmm.
And you end it by saying a childless not by choice woman has a choice to make: live a life of bitterness and sadness, or choose to do the best with the cards you've been dealt. And so I just wanted to ask you to start by talking to me about some of the reasons a woman would be childless not by choice.
That episode was forever ago, and as you're listing things off, it's coming back to my memory, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I remember that. But well, fibroids is one of the reasons. As some people may or may not know, when you have fibroids, they're basically it's tissue building up in and around and in the lining of your uterus. And if you happen to get pregnant, those balls of tissue are sucking the blood away from the baby. And
Oh.
that's what tends to cause a miscarriage. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times when women are trying to get pregnant and stay pregnant, they're having fibroid issues, they get rid of the fibroids first.
Right.
And that surgery is called a myomectomy, where they go in and cut off the fibroids. Well, I never could find Mr. Right, so I had 3 myomectomies in the course of 10 years while I waited.
Mm.
And so imagine being cut in the same place 3 times as you try to hang on to a uterus and buy time, basically.
Right.
So
Right.
fibroids is one of the ways. Adenomyosis, which is like the inverse of endometriosis.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there are tons of, maybe not tons, PCOS. There are several different things that can happen to a woman that would cause her, and trauma,
And
not to,
trauma.
right,
Yes. Yeah.
not to be able to have or carry a child.
Ever carry a child.
Hmm.
Thank you for that. I didn't know that about fibroids. I didn't realize that they stole the nutrients in the blood from the
Yes,
baby or the embryo that's growing.
right.
Um, so next, I wanted you to tell us some of the assumptions that people might make about why you were childless.
Well, I just aired an episode with a gentleman yesterday, episode 143, and what he told me immediately comes to mind. There are other things that people say, but he told me a story of a woman who went to the bank, and in the course of the transaction, the banker must have asked her something about her children, and she said, "I don't have children." And apparently the banker said, quote, "Why you selfish expletive." And I'm
What?
thinking, uh, but you don't even know the story. And this is the part that gets me quite a bit. Is as human beings, we tend to assume that we know people's stories, we know the why. We've never had a conversation with people, but we assume. And that's,
Mm.
I think, a big thing for human beings. We love to assume things about people instead of just having a conversation. So, that story immediately comes to mind. I've had people
Sure.
tell me foolish things as well, but that immediately comes to mind.
Yeah. Like what other kind of foolish things have people said?
Wow, I'm thinking back now. I know that, okay, I had a job. This is when I was starting out. I was working at a pharmacy, and it was a specialty pharmacy. So we shipped medications, specialty medications to people who were chronic or terminal
Mm.
for the most part. And we also shipped medications to women who were going through IVF. We shipped
Okay.
IVF medications. And of course, I so happened to sit next to the IVF team. Of course, because why not?
Right.
So there was one woman, a young woman, and she would always be sure to make sure I knew that she had kids and I didn't. And this was when I was going through the whole the surgeries that they didn't really know about at work. That I tried to hide the issues, the messes I was dealing with when I was on my period. The things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've had silly things said to me, but I remember more what's said to other people than to me for some reason. One woman told me she opted not to have children, and someone told her, I think it was a pastor told her that she was going to go to hell.
Mm.
And like, how where do we get these
These ideas.
thoughts and these
Yeah.
ideas from?
I
I
mean,
don't know if
that's,
I'm just, yeah.
I mean, that's the, that statement or the fact that someone is childless would be met with vitriol is astounding to me. Like, first of all, it's no one's business.
Right.
But secondly, I mean, and I would, well, because it's not my business, I wouldn't want to ask the story, but I
Right.
would do my best not to make any assumptions before I knew the story.
Right.
You know what I mean? And,
Yes.
I was thinking, like, this is again from one of your episodes. I don't remember which one, but the helpful suggestions that people make when they find out that you're childish, like, why don't you try IVF? Or have you tried IVF? Like, can you talk about some of that? Like when people aren't vitriolic, but want to help remedy your
Right.
situation.
And that makes me think of another episode with another gentleman, 2 episodes back, where people tell you to try to eat certain foods,
Mm,
and the different things that people. Most times, it's not vitriol, as you said. Most times, it's just a level of ignorance,
yeah.
and we have to understand. And it's a process because it depends on where in the journey you are in your childlessness as well. There are people who are just finding out they're not going to have the children or have opted to stop trying. And then there are people like me who are further along. It doesn't mean I'm perfectly healed and nothing bothers me. It just means that I'm much further along, and I'm so happy to be so much further along than when I started the platform. But I guess to answer your question, I'm just thinking about the question again. Um, Tell me the question again.
The helpful suggestions, like I would imagine people
Oh,
with like, well, have you thought about adoption?
yeah.
Have
Okay.
you tried, a surrogate? Have you like things like that? I don't know that that's what you've experienced, but I'm just imagining.
Yes. I have not been asked about the surrogate. I know someone who did. One of my very first listeners did, and now has a child.
Mm-hmm.
I know that people, as I said, tell you what types of foods to eat or not to eat. They even tell you what foods not to eat for fibroids,
Mm,
to kill the fibroids.
right.
So yes, as I was saying, there are people who they're just trying to be helpful, but even that is not, unless I specifically ask you for help. I don't want to know about what to eat or what not to eat, or
Right.
what positions to use with your partner. I mean, I'm telling you, people have been literally told things like that. So
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting to me. And are we talking like colleagues and coworkers, or are we talking good friends?
no, we're
When
talking strangers
strangers.
as
Okay.
well.
Yeah. That's just astonishing to me.
Yeah.
Again, I was raised differently, but it would just be something that you would never approach without being invited in.
Right. You would
Um,
think.
you would think. So, on one of your episodes, you read a quote from someone. I don't think it was your quote, but I think it was someone else who said that not having a family broke my heart, and which just felt like it stopped right there for me for a minute when you were reading this quote, and I was wondering, do you feel comfortable sharing your journey with us?
Of
Um,
course.
yeah, please.
Yeah, because I mean, that to me, I can't hide pieces of the journey and do this and have this podcast and be helping people. Yesterday, I posted something in our Facebook group. It's a Facebook group for women only who are childless not by choice. And I posted, you know, a picture of flowers that I keep on my desk because I work from home. So I buy fresh flowers for myself
Hmm.
every couple of weeks or whatever. And one of the women responded by saying, "This really spoke to me, and thank you so much for creating this family." And that floored me
Hmm.
because in order to create a family, you have to be upfront and real and not be hiding pieces of yourself because people can tell. I mean, you can't spill everything, you have to
Right.
know what to say, when to say it. But that really floored me for her to say that. That
Hmm.
means I'm doing something right with this platform.
Yes.
But the bottom line is that I no one could have told me that I was not going to be married with children. You remember that show, Married with
Oh
Children?
yeah. Yes. Katie Seagal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So nobody could have told me that was not going to happen for me. I just knew it. And then when I started having issues in my 20s with the fibroids, I realized something's not right. And um, I started trying to fight the clock right around then.
Hmm.
My first surgery was in 2001. I think that was the surgery where they took off 27 fibroids.
Ooh.
And then I had another surgery a few years after that and one after that. And that was me trying to hang on and then not having anyone to talk to, really. My mom, God rest her beautiful soul, had five of us. They told her she wasn't going to have kids either, but she had five children, and so she loved me, but she didn't understand my pain. And the people around me loved me, but didn't understand. And there were people who were like judging me for whatever reason. And I'm going around looking online, no, nothing to help me. And I started the podcast. I
Hmm.
started by having a radio show on a local AM radio station. Then I heard about this thing called podcasting, and I said, wait a minute. I can talk to everybody around the world about this. I
Right.
can spread the word. And I started the podcast in 27 years ago. I think that's
7 years ago.
20,
Yeah.
right,
2015.
15? Yeah.
I
I
think
started
so.
the platform in 14 and then the podcast in 15.
Mm.
And I just started telling people my story.
Yeah.
And people would say, oh, don't worry about it, you're going to be okay, you're going to find someone, you're going to have kids. And I'm thinking, but you don't understand, I'm not meeting Mr. Right. I'm not willing to just take somebody on just because. I mean, I'm not
Right.
judging anyone if that's their decision, because I totally get it if somebody does that. I'm not saying it's the right thing or the best thing to do, but I understand why
Hmm.
people make some decisions. I get it. But it wasn't something I wanted to do. I thought about IVF, but I thought about adoption. I tried to adopt twice. I even got the life insurance policy that they said I would have to get. I got everything together. It didn't work out.
Mm.
Nothing I tried worked. And
Right.
I decided that I can't be the only person going through this. And that's why I started podcasting about it.
I thank you for sharing that. That's because it's not something that you hear people talking about. And I'm wondering, have you found that discussing it makes people who are not experiencing this uncomfortable? Like, do they shy away from the conversation? Does it make them uncomfortable to discuss your journey?
I feel like I get that feeling sometimes. I don't know if it's true or not because I didn't ask and they didn't
Right.
say.
Yeah.
But I do get that feeling sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's that's how it's going to have to be because I'm reaching out to that segment of society that gets forgotten or judged, falls through the cracks. I've got to talk about it.
Yes. Yes, you do. And so there's just been a couple of people in my life that I told them that I was interviewing you and what the subject matter was. Interest immediately peaked. Like, wow, really? Never heard of that. That's an amazing thing to do. Curious to hear that episode when it comes out. But I wanted to talk about something else, and this is something else from another one of your episodes, where it's the inventory taking that you talk about that happens when I believe this is mainly work colleagues, but mainly I mean, it could also be with friends who assume that you have more time than them to do things, to take care of things, or maybe, and I don't know if you said this outright, but what I heard was maybe they're assuming their time is more valuable
Right.
if they have families, right? So the weekend you might spend at work or completing a task would be fine. The weekend they would spend at doing the same task would be a waste because they wouldn't be spending it with their family. I'm kind of botching that, but you know what I'm talking about?
I definitely know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and I want to just really say at the very beginning, family is important. Raising your children is important. We can all look around us and see what happens when children are not raised right. We see it every day.
Right.
So family is important. You've got to spend time with your children. I totally agree with that. However, I'm here for a reason as well. And just because I didn't get to have the children does not mean that I'm a lesser person or that my reason for being here is lesser.
Yes.
And the only way I can explain that and make it make sense is I didn't have the children. I didn't have the husband. I didn't get any of it. I didn't get anything I expected or wanted out of this life. And I had to make the choice and the decision to live the best, most relevant and joyful life I could anyway. That's my basic tagline for my podcast. And then I was the best aunt and am the best aunt I could possibly be to my 3 adult nephews, and one of them has a 2-year-old. So I invested from the time those 3 people, I call them the 3 Musketeers, from the time they were babies, I told them that I was their favorite aunt, although they probably have like 10 aunts.
You told them that you were their favorite.
I told them I was their favorite. And I said, don't forget it. I said, I know you can't admit it. They would never admit it. But I said, I get that you can't admit it, but I am. I just want you to know I am. Right. And I have invested in them. I've helped, made suggestions with book reports. I used to pay them to read a book during the summer. They had to tell me what the book was about. Then I'd give them money. I've just done everything I could be to be the best aunt ever. So I could wallow in self-pity and live a miserable, sad life.
Yeah.
Or I could do the best with what I got.
I love that. I am your favorite aunt. I'm going to remember that. I have a good friend who just had a baby, so I'm going to start telling her that. I'm going to be.
Make sure the baby knows.
Anyway. Yes, I will. No, I'm not my friend. I'm going to tell the baby.
Yes. I am your favorite aunt.
Your favorite auntie, for sure. Talk to me about navigating things like Mother's Day and baby showers and family gatherings, including kids' birthday parties.
And I just went to the 2-year-old's birthday party last week. In the very beginning, it was painful. It was painful. I felt like people were unsure of how to, even family, how to navigate with me. And I'm thinking, we could just talk instead of you just, feeling uncomfortable, but I'm not going to start the conversation. I'm not going to explain my reason for being here or my childlessness at every event. I'm not going to do it.
Right.
I'm a human being, just like you are. So if you want to be uncomfortable, that's fine. But I will say, for me, I was quite uncomfortable. I didn't go to showers, actually. The only time I would probably peek out and go to a shower is if it was a family member and I kind of had to be there. But generally speaking, no. If I liked the person a lot, I would give them a gift card. But to go to the shower, no. I just didn't go. Mm-hmm. And I, especially in the beginning, not now, but I cried myself to sleep quite a bit, especially during that decade when I was hanging on, trying to buy time. Lots of pillow-soaked tears, tears on the pillow, whatever you want to say. But, the whole point of the podcast is to get us through the journey, because when you're on a journey, you don't stop. You're supposed to continue on. That's what a journey is. And I want people to get to the point where cry, scream, yell, be mad at God. I was mad at God. I'm a believer, but I was mad at God. I didn't speak to God for years over this. And meaning I didn't pray. No relationship, because I was angry. And so you can do all those things, but then move on. Figure out a way to move through. And that's what this podcast is about, helping you figure out a way to move on through this life. You only get one. Life is short. You're worthy. You're here for a reason. Figure it out. I'll help you, and keep on moving.
Yeah. Because what I hear you say is that you grieved.
Yes.
And these things were painful, these baby showers. I mean, I've left a store or a restaurant and on Mother's Day and had people shout out Happy Mother's Day to me. And I'm like, how do they know I'm a mom? What if I wasn't a mom? I happen to be, but what if I wasn't? So
Right.
Navigating those types of things, you're saying that you went through extreme grief, that it was very painful for you. You chose not to expose yourself to those situations in the beginning,
right?
Because they were so painful, but you kept going. And now you are where you are. And so for the person just starting this journey, just starting to listen to Childless Not By Choice podcast, they can see that there's a trail. There's a map that it doesn't avoid pain. Right. That's not what you're saying, but you're saying there's a way through it.
Right. There's a progression. There should be a progression as you listen to the podcast.
Yes.
I mean, the episodes in the beginning were like, I don't listen to them.
No.
So to hear that you've listened to them, I was like, wow. Mm-hmm. It's bringing up a lot of memories. But yeah, there should be a progression from 2015 through now. And that's what I want the listener to understand, that where we may not all get there at the same time, but you can get there. You can make it through this.
Why do you encourage women who are childless not by choice to rock the boat rather than hide in plain sight?
Because we are all, if we are alive and we are all human beings, we are all here for a purpose. It may not be the purpose we wanted or expected, but we're here for a reason. And I am tired of every room I walk into, there's at least one woman in there that's childless not by choice. At least one. And sometimes more. But she's either said she's okay, she's gotten past it, she's good. Mm-hmm. All the things that we tell ourselves, and I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, are you? Are you? Or are you just trying to blend in and pretend that all is well because your family members don't want to hear about it for the millionth time that you didn't get to have the kid, and, what's your life all about because you didn't have the children? I don't believe in hiding in plain sight. I know there are parts of the world where it's probably better that you do. hide.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about that some in some episodes as well, because still in the 21st century, if you don't produce, I'm so sorry for you if you live in certain parts of the world, especially as you age, which is another
Yeah.
conversation I had with that gentleman yesterday. And so it's not, I'm trying to say be wise.
Mm-hmm.
Be wise about how you show up and present yourself in the world, but don't pretend. Unless maybe it's going to save your life,
Right.
But
Unless
don't
safety
be
is
a
an issue.
pretender.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that. Scott and I both have a few childless not by choice women in our lives. Well, actually, that's not true. We have a couple of childless not by choice women in our lives, and we have another couple. They are loud and proud. They love their lives that are unburdened by children,
Hmm.
and they are, and I and they're they're on social media living this life that probably wouldn't have been possible if they had had children. But two of them are really wounded by their journey.
Hmm.
Baby showers are really hard for them. People celebrating their kids' milestones, those things are hard for them. And there have been times when I've been very aware when
Hmm.
posting about my kids or talking about them. Um, so I want to know from you how much is my responsibility here, and what would be most helpful for my friends with regard to how much I talk about and how aware I am of my own of being a mother when I'm talking to them. Do you know what I mean?
So I definitely know what you mean. And again, I think it depends on where in the journey that person is, but you're also not responsible. How should I say this? I don't mean you're not, we're all responsible for each other to some level as human beings,
Yeah.
but you're not responsible. How do I say it?
Well, considerate.
Con-
Let's replace responsible with considerate. I
okay.
want to be
So,
considerate. Yeah.
right. Okay. So, and that's great because most people aren't thinking about that. They're just living their lives oblivious. And so to be considerate is to ask that person, talk. That's what I was saying earlier. Talk to the person, have a conversation about how your posts make them feel, and should you leave them out or do they want to be included? It's
Mm,
a whole conversation.
right.
It's a whole conversation. There are times right now people are sending their children back to school. So you're seeing all the first day of school
Yep.
pictures. There
Yes.
are some women, depending on where they are in the journey, they cannot handle it. So they stay off Facebook. A lot of women in my Facebook group stay off Facebook on Mother's Day. A lot of women in the Childless Not By Choice community just stay off social media
Hmm.
for during Mother's Day. There are some years when I do that, and some years when I'm fine with it. That woman has to be, she has to know where she is in her journey and deal with it accordingly. But she, and I'm not saying your friend is doing this, but she can't rely completely on you for how she's dealing or how she's feeling. That's what community is all about.
Right.
Community with people who are like you. That's why community is so important. So that you can go out and then deal with the pictures on
Yes.
social media.
Yeah. Um, that's really interesting, and to have, because now I'm thinking about like affinity groups, and we started one when my kids were in school. There weren't very many Black people in the school, so we started a Black affinity group.
Mhm.
They probably called it African American then, but and how important that was to have that community to talk about the particular things that we were experiencing and how we
Right.
were experiencing them. And but outside of an educational setting or a corporate setting, to have an affinity group, because that's really what that is, right?
Hmm.
For
Yes.
people who are having a common experience, such as being childless not by choice.
Right.
I can only imagine how important that would be.
It's quite important. And I wish more women would join, but I also understand why a lot of women don't, especially on social media, they don't want their friends to know. I've been
Yeah.
told I don't want my friends to know about this portion of my journey yet. I've got the messages, and
Mm.
I'm like, I totally get it. You don't have to tell them anything, but they're like, I have a suggestion, but don't mention my name because. And so I
Mm.
get that a lot as well. And that's fine. Again, it's where you are in the journey, and just knowing that no matter where you are in the journey, join that group, join the group somehow, or talk to me, because I tell people all the time, inbox me, messenger me. I'm willing to talk. I get it.
How
Talk to
much
somebody.
talk to somebody? I love that too. How much different is the journey, in your opinion? Because there's a stigma attached to women who don't have children. What about men? I know it's different, but how different is it? And do you deal with men in your community?
You're going to think this is the wildest thing, but when I first started, I did not consider men.
Mm.
I didn't think about them at all. It's the craziest thing. And then I guess somewhere during the journey, I realized, wait a minute, men can be childless not by choice as well. And so episode 143, the episode I just mentioned, the most
Yeah.
recent episode, that's with Dr. Robin Hadley. He's been on the podcast before, but he did his dissertation on childless not by choice men.
Mm.
And so I had him come back so we could talk about the men he interviewed for his dissertation. And that was an amazing episode to hear it from a man's point of view. An elderly man being asked to be a surrogate grandfather for some little boys who had their dad had lost his dad, and they needed a grandfather for a project.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that we don't think about men because we think, men don't have feelings. Of course they have feelings.
Right.
Praise
Yeah.
God.
Right.
So of course they do, but we don't think of it like that. And I can blame society a little bit for that, but being able to interview Dr. Hadley, able to interview, I think it was episode 140 or 141, where I interviewed a gentleman who does the swims. I don't know if you heard that episode. He
I
does.
didn't hear that one. No.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. He's Canadian, but he lives in New Zealand with his Australian wife, and he's just swum all these rivers all over the place. And he talked about why he was childless and how he's dealing with it. And he's a chiropractor by trade. So it was an amazing episode. Last year for June, I had 5 men come on and talk to us, to the audience, about being childless not by choice men. That
Right.
was the episode for last June. Father's Day here in the
Father's
U.S.
Day. Yes,
Right.
exactly. I was just going to say that. So that makes so much sense.
Hmm.
So your mind was expanded
Oh yeah.
so you've been focused on half the population.
Imagine.
Um,
So embarrassing.
but it makes sense because when I think about that, I think about women.
Right.
I don't think about men for a variety of reasons.
Right.
And a lot of it for me is the media, not just society, but what I've seen portrayed in the media. Men, there's like a line in I Love Lucy where Lucy's trying to convince Ricky to do something with this other couple. And she mentions that the guy is a bachelor without kids. And he's like, lucky man. And she goes crazy. She's like, what do you mean he's lucky? But there was this perception that if he had avoided it that
Hmm.
long, he was great. Like he had done well in life. And
Right.
I think that really permeates through still. That was in the 1950s, obviously. But here in 2022, I think there's still this idea that a woman is to be pitied if
Hmm.
she doesn't have children, but a man, maybe there's some applause required for him. Like maybe
Right.
he's done something that other men aren't able to do. And yeah, I mean, I didn't think about that until you were just talking. Now it's not in my notes to ask you that, but as you were talking, I'm like, what about men?
Hmm.
Did you see Sex in the City 2, the movie?
No, I saw I know what I've seen
Yeah.
it, but I didn't see two. No.
Well, so, the two leads, Carrie, who's Sarah Jessica Parker, and
Right.
Chris Noth, who's Mr. Big, they get married. And so they're married in Sex and the City too, and they're at another friend's wedding. Um, and it comes up, they're sitting next to another couple who are using a surrogate to have a child.
Mhm.
They're very familiar with Carrie Bradshaw because they've read a lot of her work, and they're asking them when they're going to have kids. And they both say to them, "Well, we're not having kids." They don't say why. They don't tell the audience why either. We don't know why, but they're not. And there's this shock, and the other couple leaves. They like get up, and they're like make an excuse, and they go really quickly. And so the whole movie it keeps coming back to just us two. That's what they're calling it. Like it's just going to be us two, and them kind of
Mhm.
reckoning with that. Um, in another episode of Sex and the City, clearly I'm a fan in the series. Carrie realizes that she may never have a wedding or a baby, so she
Mhm.
registers for a marriage to herself. And she asks people to give her presents because she's been going to all these baby showers, and she's kind of fed up with it. But those are the only two times in kind of a lighthearted way I've seen this subject approached. I've seen it approached in a very serious, dramatic way,
Mhm.
but I just don't see a lot about it. Do you see yourself in the media? Do you see situations like yours reflected back to you?
Not really, because the shows that where I've seen a hint of it, the woman does end up getting pregnant.
Yes.
So I can't think of a show. As you were talking, I'm like I'm trying to think of a show where she never has the child, and I
Right.
can't think of one.
Yeah.
So again, I'm even more of a niche podcast because I'm talking to the woman who's never going to have the child. I'm not talking
Right.
about the one who had a successful IVF.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mad at you for having a successful IVF, and by the way, I'm not mad at you for having children. It's fabulous. I love children, but there is a segment that I don't want falling through the cracks because I'm a part of that segment, and that's the woman who is and the man who will never have the child.
Right. 7 years you've been doing the podcast, which is a long time. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That's
It is a
that's quite
long
a
time.
milestone. Yeah. Where in that would you say you, because I love the way you phrased it, and I don't remember exactly what you said, but basically you said you're a lot further along in the journey. You said you weren't healed. It
Right.
wasn't perfect, but you were a lot further along than when you started, and everything was quite painful. Where in that this time frame do you think that you made a turn to, oh, I don't have to be bitter about this, that I feel okay. I can go to that baby shower and genuinely be happy and not feel the wounding that I did before.
I want to say, and this helps, this will hopefully help the woman out there who may not yet feel genuinely happy, but I am always genuinely happy for anyone
Mm,
who's about to have a baby
yeah.
because they are gifts. And as I said, I love children. I am so in love with my great nephew. I, he's spoiled. I mean, and we all love it. And his dad was spoiled because his dad was the first grandchild on my parents' side. And he was around for 4 years before his brothers showed up. So I love children and I love that people are having them. And my heart breaks when I hear the stories of people who mistreat their children.
Mm,
That's when I get heartbroken. But to have a child, it's beautiful. But as far as the journey, I kind of think it shows in the podcast. And long answer is I wanted to be whole. You have to want to be whole before you even get there. And I just did not want to be bitter. I did not want to live a bitter life, a sad existence. I wanted to be better. And I think that's at least half the battle.
wonderful. When did you start talking to God again?
Um, it was a couple years. It
In
was a couple years, and I think it was my mom. who asked me, she said, "Are you mad at God?" And I said, "Maybe." I couldn't tell her I was mad at God. She's like, "Please don't be mad at God. Just let him handle things for you. Don't be mad at him." And I think that's where my heart started to soften up, was when she somehow knew. I never told her I was mad at God. The mothers know.
Yeah. Yeah, she knew.
Yeah.
She knew. Civilla, thank you so much. Tell me where people can find you.
Well, I know they say not to say this in podcaster world, but everywhere. I'm on. They say not to say it, but I mean, every podcatcher app out there, I'm on there, including, of course, Apple Podcasts. I listen a lot on Stitcher and, of course, Spotify, Pandora, Apple, Google Play Radio, Amazon Radio. You name it, the podcast is there.
Dope. And so you have a private Facebook group, right?
Yes.
But you're also on Instagram.
Yes, I have the Instagram account is @joyandrelevance. The Facebook page is, the group is Childless Not By Choice with Civilla Morgan. That's for women only. There's also a supporters group that's for anybody who wants to join, but the women only group is women only. And the people that help me run that people are, we check. Let me just put it that way.
Yes. Excellent. I'm just following you now, so on Instagram. Wait, tell me the Instagram again.
Well, my personal Instagram is @Civilla1, which I have to know you to let you in, but @Joy and Relevance is for anyone who wants to join and talk about childlessness, right?
Beautiful.
And I'm on Twitter @Civilla1. I'm on YouTube, Civilla Morgan. I'm everywhere.
You are everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. I have just followed you in both places. Or requested the first one and followed you in the second. Thank you so much for this. This has been a really important conversation. I've wanted to have it for a while. And then you came into my life, so I'm able to have it. So I really appreciate you taking that time on a Sunday to and was it last week where it was your nephew's birthday?
Well, his birthday is really the 25th, but they celebrated it on the 14th.
Yeah. So you had to be there. Yes.
I missed his first birthday.
Yeah.
I couldn't miss his second.
One. Yes. So important.
Excommunicated from the family.
No, I'm glad you got to attend that, and I'm glad we got you anyway. And you are our season finale for this season, for season 14. So this is a celebrated episode, and thank you for helping us round out a really great season.
Thank you.
And just thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it so much. Hi, I'm Civilla Morgan, and I am the only one in the room who is childless not by choice.